It's a great start. These seem like building block recruits. It's also really a good look at how Brian Kelly's building this class. He's going from, what he's done the first 3 years. Everything's getting better, but it's still, we haven't seen a lot of the stars that probably are going to commit later this afternoon or this morning. But everybody has a role in this class. There's profile players. There's guys that fit position needs. So it's really a good job of filling need and really finding a lot of great players.
Yeah, this is the fourth class for Coach Kelly and his staff. What kind of job have they done so far? I mean, it seems, on paper at least, that every class really has been better than the last.
Yeah, when Brian Kelly took the job, everyone was worried, would he be able to recruit on this big stage? And he'd come from Central Michigan and come from Cincinnati. So this is not recruiting at Central Michigan and Cincinnati. But, he's gone up with the big boys, and for just about anyone, again, he goes into SEC country for Isaac Rochelle. He's going to beat a lot of other programs for some players we talk about later today. But, I mean, recruiting has been fantastic. There's no way around it. And if you look at a lot of what I like to do is it's much easier to look back at classes. 2008, we thought Notre Dame signed, one of the best classes in the country, and you saw some of the deficiencies play out over the next couple of years. This class seems to fill, any of the deficiencies the roster has now, but also, reaches that star power too.
How does a season like 2012, an undefeated regular season, a run to the national title game, help recruiting? How does that bolster that idea and that program that you're trying to sell to these potential student athletes?
Yeah, I think there's no question. If you look at last year's recruiting class, Notre Dame, cast a very wide net, took a big shot during the USC game, brought in kids from all around the country, and didn't necessarily land those players, and it probably had a lot to do with the momentum that trickled away as the Irish went 8-5. This season, you make a run to the national championship game and you find yourself in on commitment or on recruits that you didn't even consider a month and a half ago. And I think that's all plays at the part that you're selling a much different product now that you can match up a school with the #1 graduation rate with a school that was ranked #1 for the last month and a half of the season.
Of the young men signed so far, do you see maybe any of them, of these 11 guys, making an immediate impact, starting from day one, maybe coming out of nowhere, a la Kavari Russell?
Yeah, I look at Michael Deeb, a guy not a lot of people talk about, but he's a physically ready kid. He's going to probably walk onto campus and play in all 4 special teams units. He's a workout warrior. He's at a position where there's a lot of flux with Manti Te'o gone. Some fifth-year questions coming up between Dan Fox and Carlo Calabrese. So, he's a guy, he might not be a flashy starter, but he's a guy who's probably going to see the field immediately.
Deeb, a 4-year starter down there in Plantation, Florida. Now, we've met one of the 5 early enrollees so far, the wide receiver from St. Paul, Minnesota, James Anuwalu. You're a Creighton-Durham guy. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, I talked to Mike Scanlon, his high school coach, maybe a month ago, and he was really impressed with the progress James made from his junior to senior year. He's a guy who can kind of play everywhere. He's a Swiss Army knife kind of player. Maybe he's a running back, maybe he's a wide receiver. He could be that guy in the slot that actually shows the flexibility this offense has, and he could grow his way into a safety. So he's just a big, good football player, and I think Notre Dame saw that, saw the kind of kid he is, saw the program he came from where there's been great success, and took a shot at him.
You kind of touched on a little bit already, Keith, but filling the holes in the roster with some questions on the offensive line. We've seen guys like Montelis come in, linebacker, with the loss of Manti Te'o, Calabrese Fox still up in the air. You see Deeb come in. How important is it to target those holes when the staff goes out and recruits?
I mean, that's what you recruit for. I mean, if it were all about signing, the best players, you would just cherry pick people that seem to fit Notre Dame, but then you'd have 15 wide receivers, or you do something that would negate a huge hole. There's only 85 scholarships. So the key, at least, and I'm not a recruiting coordinator, so I couldn't speak to it as well as I'm sure some of the guys are going to talk later, but it's like the key is to fill the deficiencies, is to make sure you have the numbers on the defensive and offensive line where Notre Dame has struggled in the past, and really kind of plug and play people, guys like Rashard Kinlaw, people that can come in and fill a need and play at a position that doesn't have a lot of depth yet.
Following the Notre Dame beat there for NBC Sports, can you just touch on the process of recruiting a potential student athlete, and what's that process like?
You know,
A lot of it will start early in their careers, sophomore, junior years.
yeah, I mean, for a coach today, it's got to be, crazy. You spend 18 months talking to these kids and making sure, calling them however many times you can talk, developing these relationships, and there's a very good chance that a fax goes to a different school and, you're no longer in the game.
You graduated in 2002, as we noted. We both know how special this place is. What are some of the selling points that these coaches will make to these potential student athletes about campus life in South Bend and Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think you hear it when people come back and have that first interview after a recruiting class, and you kind of either get it or you don't. Notre Dame will challenge you academically. It'll challenge it'll enrich your life spiritually. It'll give you an opportunity to play on the biggest playing field, one of the biggest playing fields in college football. But it's certainly not for everyone.
We will keep in touch with Keith Arnold all day.